Bob Dylan, the most enigmatic legend in music, a man who rarely expresses emotion in public, has just posted a single image on Twitter following Bob Weir's death. No explanation, no lengthy caption, just one black and white photograph from 1987. Yet that image is shaking the entire music world and bringing millions to tears. At the same time, the Empire State Building in New York is glowing in tie-dye colors, San Francisco is flooded with fans, and the world is witnessing one of the largest tributes in rock and roll history. Why is a silent image from Bob Dylan so powerful? And what legacy did Bob Weir truly leave behind? We're about to explore that right now. On January 10th, 2026, the music world lost one of the greatest souls of American rock. Bob Weir, the co-founder of the legendary band Grateful Dead, a masterful rhythm guitarist, and the beating heart of a cultural movement that spanned more than 6 decades, passed away peacefully at the age of 78. He was surrounded by those he loved most, his wife Natasha, his 2 daughters Monet and Chloe, and the love of millions of fans around the world. Bob Weir's death was not a sudden shock, but the conclusion of a courageous and dignified battle. After being diagnosed with cancer in July 2025, he fought the disease with extraordinary strength of will. Just 3 weeks after beginning chemotherapy, he still stepped onto the stage at Golden Gate Park to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Grateful Dead, a performance witnessed by 180,000 people in awe and deep emotion. In October 2025, good news arrived. He had beaten cancer. But the battle did not end there. Cancer treatment left severe complications in Bob Weir's lungs. Underlying lung issues, possibly present beforehand but worsened by treatment, gradually became uncontrollable. In the final months of 2025, he struggled to breathe, no longer had the strength to play guitar for long periods, and spent most of his time resting at home in Mill Valley, California. But what stands out most about Bob Weir's final days was not the illness itself, but how he faced it. His family later shared that he was not afraid of death. Instead, he confronted life's finitude with calm reflection, like a lifelong practitioner of meditation. He spent time contemplating his life, what he had created, and most importantly, the people he had connected. To Weir, death was not an end, but a transition. Music never stops, it only changes form. In the first hours after news of Bob Weir's passing broke, the American music scene and the world were flooded with tributes from artists. John Mayer posted an old photo with a brief caption. Bruce Springsteen wrote a long piece about the influence of Grateful Dead. The remaining members of Dead & Company shared cherished memories, but everyone was waiting for one person, Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan, the man often called the Master of Mystery, who rarely expresses emotions publicly. He doesn't use Instagram, rarely tweets, and almost never comments on current events or the deaths of fellow artists. That's why whenever he posts anything, the world pays attention. And on the afternoon of January 11th, Bob Dylan spoke in the only way Bob Dylan could. No long explanation, no emotional caption, no poetic reflections on legacy or influence. Bob Dylan simply posted a black and white photograph on his ex-Twitter account. One image, no words. That was all. And yet, the image said everything that needed to be said. The photograph was taken in 1987 during the historic tour when Bob Dylan and Grateful Dead performed across the United States. In the image, Dylan stands center stage, guitar in hand, with Bob Weir on one side and Jerry Garcia, who passed away in 1995, on the other. 3 men, 3 legends, 3 souls of American music sharing a single moment on stage. The stage lights shine down on them, and in that instant, music is no longer performance, it is communion. The internet exploded. Within hours, the photo had been shared more than 2 million times. Music outlets such as Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, and NPR published analyses of its meaning. Fans around the world commented that they couldn't stop crying when they saw it. One of the most liked comments read, "Dylan chose a photo with both Weir and Garcia. Now both are gone. Dylan stands between 2 departed legends. This isn't just a tribute to Weir, it's a tribute to an entire era." Bob Dylan's silence was the most powerful statement of all. He didn't need to explain, because the image spoke for him. It was a silent blessing, a way of affirming that Bob Weir and Jerry Garcia meant everything to him. They weren't just colleagues, they were brothers in music, people who explored new territories of artistic creation together. A music critic from the New York Times wrote, "Bob Dylan's silence speaks louder than 1,000 eulogies." By choosing this particular photo with both Weir and the late Garcia, Dylan is not just mourning a friend. He's acknowledging the end of an era that he himself was part of. It's the most Dylan thing he could have done, and somehow it's perfect. To understand why Bob Dylan's image is so powerful, we have to go back to 1987, a turbulent year for both Dylan's career and Grateful Dead. Dylan was in what many called his lost years. He was tired of touring alone and felt disconnected from his own music. Meanwhile, Grateful Dead were still at their peak, with hundreds of thousands of Deadheads following them across America. When Dylan decided to tour with Grateful Dead, many were skeptical. These two musical worlds, Dylan's individual folk rock style and Grateful Dead's collective psychedelic jams, seemed incompatible. But something miraculous happened. The 1987 tour wasn't just a collaboration. It was a collision of two American music legends, creating something entirely new and unrepeatable. Bob Weir played a crucial role in the success of that tour. While Jerry Garcia drew much of the attention as lead guitarist, it was Weir who truly translated Dylan's music into the language of Grateful Dead. Weir's rhythm guitar was always grounding yet searching, creating a foundation that allowed Dylan to experiment freely. Dylan's songs like Knockin' on Heaven's Door and All Along the Watchtower were woven by Weir in a way that made them feel as if they had always belonged together. Dylan later said in a rare interview about that tour, "Playing with the Dead taught me something I had forgotten, that music is a conversation, not a monologue. Bobby Weir understood that better than anyone." Coming from Dylan, who is famously sparing with praise, this was extraordinary. What connected Dylan and Weir wasn't just musical technique, but philosophy. Both understood the value of risk-taking, of stepping onto the stage without knowing exactly what would happen next. Both believed that music must be lived, not merely performed. In an era when most bands played fixed set lists and replicated studio recordings, Dylan and Weir, along with Grateful Dead, created shows where every night was completely different. One fan who attended multiple shows during the 1987 tour recalled, "You never knew what would happen. Some nights were chaotic, some nights were transcendent. But every night, you could see Dylan and Weir looking at each other, communicating through their instruments, pushing each other to go deeper. It was like watching two masters having a conversation in a language only they fully understood." It is precisely this shared history that gives Dylan's photo such profound meaning. It is not just a commemorative image, it is a symbol of a spiritual bond between two great artists, a bond forged through music and existing far beyond words. While Bob Dylan's silent image continues to spread across social media, grand tributes are unfolding across the United States and around the world. These are not top-down, officially organized events, but organic expressions of love that people hold for Bob Weir and the legacy he left behind. In New York, the city where Grateful Dead performed countless times, something extraordinary happened. On the evening of January 11th, the Empire State Building, an icon of the city, was illuminated in the swirling, multicolored patterns characteristic of tie-dye. Blue, purple, red, yellow, orange, all the colors that Deadheads have worn for decades, now lit up the Manhattan skyline. This marked the first time in the history of the Empire State Building that it was illuminated in a tie-dye pattern, and the sight caused thousands of people to stop in the streets, look up at the sky, and cry. But if New York represented a grand spectacle of remembrance, San Francisco, the true home of Grateful Dead, offered a tribute from the heart. Thousands of fans spontaneously gathered in the Haight-Ashbury district, the place where Grateful Dead lived and rehearsed in the 1960s, where the counterculture movement began. There were no organizers, no official event, just people bringing guitars, old photographs, and memories. From the afternoon of January 10th until late into the night, the streets of Haight-Ashbury turned into a living memorial. People sat on the sidewalks, playing Grateful Dead songs. They shared stories about the first time they heard the band's music, about unforgettable shows, about how Bob Weir's music changed their lives. Strangers hugged and cried together. Older generations told younger ones about the summer of love, in 1967. A community, the Deadhead family, was mourning their spiritual father together. Around the world, similar tributes were taking place. In London, a group of musicians gathered at Abbey Road Studios and played Grateful Dead songs throughout the night. In Tokyo, fans organised a Dead Night at a small venue. In Sydney, people gathered at Bondi Beach with guitars and sang Ripple as the sun rose. Bob Weir, a man from San Francisco, had created a global impact beyond measure. The response from the artist community was just as profound. From Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam to Billie Eilish, artists from different generations and genres shared tributes. Notably, they didn't just speak about Weir's musical talent, but about his kindness. Many younger artists shared stories of meeting Weir backstage, where he took time to talk with them, encourage them, and teach them not only about music, but about life. To truly understand why the world is grieving Bob Weir so deeply, we must look back at what he created over 6 decades. Bob Weir was not just a guitarist or a musician. He was a cultural architect, someone who helped redefine the concept of rock music and community in the 20th and 21st centuries. In 1965, at just 18 years old, Bob Weir, along with Jerry Garcia, Phil Lesh, Ron Pigpen McKernan, and Bill Kreutzmann, founded Grateful Dead in San Francisco. From the very beginning, this band was different. While most rock bands focused on writing hit songs and selling as many albums as possible, Grateful Dead focused on something entirely different: the communal experience. They did not see fans as customers, but as participants in a shared journey. Bob Weir played a pivotal role in this philosophy. As a rhythm guitarist, he understood that his job was not to shine, but to create a foundation. His guitar style was both complex and deeply emotional, unconventional chord progressions, constantly shifting rhythm patterns, creating a sonic landscape that was always evolving. In Grateful Dead's long jams, sometimes lasting 30 to 40 minutes, Weir's guitar was the backbone that allowed Garcia and the others to explore freely. But Bob Weir's legacy extends far beyond musical technique. He was one of the first to truly understand that a concert does not need to be completely controlled. Grateful Dead encouraged fans to record their shows, something considered insane at the time. Most bands banned recording out of fear of losing album revenue. But Weir and Grateful Dead understood something crucial. The more music was shared, the stronger the community became. That decision created a massive tape trading network, the precursor to today's file sharing and streaming culture. Bob Weir's musical style also deeply influenced generations of musicians. His approach to rhythm guitar, not simply strumming chords, but creating intricate melodic lines interwoven with bass and lead, became a blueprint for countless jam bands that followed. From Fish to Widespread Panic, from String Cheese Incident to Goose, all carry the imprint of Weir's playing. But perhaps Bob Weir's greatest legacy is the message he conveyed through his music. For Weir, music was not just entertainment, it was a map for living. Through songs like Cassidy, Playing in the Band, and The Other One, he encouraged listeners to embrace curiosity, empathy, and openness to new experiences. His music was an invitation to feel deeply, question freely, wander without hesitation, and most importantly, to feel that you belong somewhere. This philosophy gave rise to the phenomenon of the Deadheads, a fan community unlike any other in rock history. Deadheads didn't just listen to the music, they lived by the values Grateful Dead represented: unity, acceptance, freedom, and love. Many Deadheads followed Grateful Dead on tour across the country, turning concert-going into a way of life, and Bob Weir was always the warm heart of that community. A few days after Bob Weir's passing, his family posted an official message on their website. Unlike the dry statements often seen, this message was written in beautiful, heartfelt language, true to the way Weir lived. The family wrote, "Bobby's art was like sunlight that filled the soul." This was not just a beautiful metaphor, it precisely described what millions felt when listening to Weir's music. There was a warmth, a vitality in the way he played guitar and sang, as if every note carried positive energy. The message continued. He built a community and a common language for generations of fans. Bob Weir didn't just create music, he built a community and a shared language for generations of fans. This is profoundly important. In an increasingly divided world, Grateful Dead, and Bob Weir in particular, created a space where people could come together regardless of age, race, class, or political views. At a Dead concert, you could see a CEO sitting next to a hippie, a university professor next to a college dropout, all part of the same family. The most moving part of the message was the invitation the family described. His music was an invitation to feel deeply, to question freely, to wander without hesitation, and most importantly, to feel like you belong somewhere. His music was an invitation to feel deeply, question freely, wander without hesitation, and most importantly, to feel that you belong somewhere. This is the heart of Bob Weir's legacy. In an era when many people feel lonely, disconnected, and as if they belong nowhere, Weir's music created a home for them. It said, "You are welcome here. You are part of something bigger. You belong." Thousands of fans commented beneath the family's message, sharing personal stories about how Bob Weir saved them from depression, helped them find community when they were lonely, and gave them hope when they felt hopeless. The passing of Bob Weir marks the end of an era in American music history. Grateful Dead has now almost entirely passed into history. Jerry Garcia passed away in 1995, Ron Pigpen McKernan in 1973, Keith Godchaux in 1980, Brent Midland in 1990, and Phil Lesh in October 2024. Bob Weir was the last of the founding members who was still actively performing, and now a chapter has truly come to a close. But if we think that Bob Weir's legacy will die with him, then we are completely wrong. The reach of his work is limitless, passed down through every improvised performance, every listening heart, every new generation of musicians. Dead and Company, with John Mayer stepping into the role once held by Jerry Garcia, continues to tour and draw tens of thousands of fans to each show. Younger jam bands like Goose, Neighbor, and Eggy all cite Grateful Dead, and especially Bob Weir, as a primary source of inspiration. And not only within the jam band world, Bob Weir's influence has seeped into every corner of contemporary culture. Fashion designers have created collections inspired by Deadhead aesthetics. Tech startups in Silicon Valley, many founded by Deadheads, have built company cultures based on the communal philosophy of Grateful Dead. Even in academia, there are university-level courses dedicated to Grateful Dead and their cultural impact. Bob Weir will forever remain a beacon guiding the course of American and global music. He represents an ideal, that music can be a tool to connect people, to heal, to build community. In an era when music is increasingly commodified, turned into a product consumed through streaming, Bob Weir reminds us that music is ultimately about lived experience, about moments shared together. There is a famous saying in the Deadhead community, "The music never stops." It is the title of a Grateful Dead song, but it is also a philosophy. The music of Bob Weir and everything it represents will never stop. It will continue to live on through guitarists learning his style, through young people discovering Grateful Dead for the first time, through spontaneous jam sessions where strangers become friends, through every moment someone reminds another. Take care of each other out there. As his family wrote, there is really no final curtain here, just the feeling that someone is once again on the road. No final curtain, not truly, just the sense of someone setting off on a journey. Bob Weir lives on with us. If you were moved by the story of Bob Weir, please hit like and subscribe to continue following our stories about legendary musicians who shaped culture. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever attended a Grateful Dead or Dead and Company concert? Or does a Bob Weir song hold special meaning for you? Share your story in the comments. I'll read and respond to the best ones. Let's come together to honor a legend who taught us the meaning of connection through music.